Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me, and thank you for being here. On behalf of the Tang Center for Silk Road Studies, I'm so glad you could join us as we approach the end of the semester. And it's hard to believe that we have only two events left, including today's. Next week, Thursday at 5 p.m., I just wanted to announce we will be welcoming Anissa Rahadining Pias for an in-person lecture titled Faith in the Unknown Indian Ocean as an Exhibitionary Method. That talk will take place in 370 Dwinelle. And for those who are unable to join in person, just to let you know that it will be recorded and shared via the Tang Center website. But today is really special because we have the joy and privilege of hearing from someone who really needs no introduction in our community, our dear friend and colleague, Osman Boperachi. And I say that not just because Osman's scholarly footprint is immense, though it truly is, but because he's become such an integral part of our intellectual and personal lives here. Introducing him or introducing you, Osman, feels a little bit like introducing a family member. Still, for the record, Osmond is Emeritus Director of Research at the French Center for Scientific Research in Paris and was recently named a corresponding member of the prestigious Académie des Inscriptions et Belles-Lettres. His academic home is vast. As many of you know, he's a numismatist, an art historian, archaeologist, historian, a scholar of Buddhism. His affiliations are as wide-ranging as well, as wide-ranging as his interests, including the Sorbonne, where he earned both his PhD and a higher doctorate, and of course UC Berkeley, where we have been fortunate to have him teach Buddhist art and archaeology, much to the delight and benefit of our students and faculty alike. Now, his publications span, and there are many, too many really to mention, and they span topics from Sri Lankan and Gandharan art to Buddhism to ancient India, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and I'm going to spare you the full list only because it would take the better part of the afternoon. But do check out his website. It's a true treasure trove of all the activities and all the publications that he has produced. Now, Osman's work is rooted not only in archives, museums, and libraries, but in the field as well. And I've had the great pleasure of working alongside him on projects tracing the spread of Avalokiteshvara images in Sri Lanka and the maritime rods of the Indian Ocean. Now, today, Osman is going to bring us back to Gandhara, another region that has long captured his interest and to which he has truly contributed some of his most important work. His lecture, The Origin and Evolution of Avalokiteshvara Images in the Light of New Discoveries from Gandhara, promises to bring fresh insights to a subject that continues to resonate across regions, disciplines, and centuries. So I would now, if we were in person, ask our audience to please help me welcome you, Osmond. But we can't clap for you, but we're so delighted to see you again and to have you here sharing your latest research. So welcome, Osmond G.
Thank you so much, Sanjot. Thank you very much, Sanjot and Frank, for organizing this talk. It has always been a great pleasure for me to work with you, Sanjot, since the day I met you in 1980s, and we have been working on so many projects, especially the recent projects in Sri Lanka and also projects related to the Tang Center. So Sanjot Mendale is the chair of the Tang Center for Silk Road Studies, and Frank Pillay is the program director. So both of them really, invited me to give these talks. I'm very happy to do it now. I just want to see whether the PowerPoint works. So my today's talk is mainly based on what I have discovered during my recent visit, that was in March, to Pakistan, almost after 10 years. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Lillian Handlin, who took us there, and Professor Mohammed Hamid and his colleagues, and all my Pakistani friends, wherever they were, Lahore, Islamabad, Peshawar, Swat, and everywhere, for their unfailing collaboration and support. My today's talk revisits the question of the origin and evolution of the images of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara in the Gandhara and their spread in India, China, along the trade routes. I hope to be able to discuss here the importance of hitherto unpublished or partially published sculptures whose iconography was misunderstood by our predecessors. We shall discuss in Gandharan art, the iconography of the Bodhisattva Maitreya is often recognizable through his characteristic attribute, the flask, Kundika. On the contrary, identifying Avalokiteshvara in early Indian art forms is more of a challenge. Even some representations of Siddhartha Gautama as future Buddha have also led to confusion. Stone sculptures depicting the Gautama Buddha found in Gandhara are amazingly numerous compared to the ones attested in their contemporary schools of Buddhist art in India. Many freestanding images of the Buddha is adorned by a halo and frequently depicted performing the Abhay Mudra with the raised right hand and holding the hem of the overrobe with the left hand. These sculptures are characterized by a neckline with two schemes of drapery resulting from the back throw of the thick overrobe. The semi-transparent nature of the Samgati discreetly reveals the gently rounded shoulders, the breasts, and the abdomen of the Buddha. Some sculptures are also characterized by Ganushnisha, which is a protuberance on the top of the skull, and Urna, tuft of hair between the eyebrows. Two among 22 signs that we call in Sanskrit Lakshana of a great Purusha or the great man, Mahapurusha. The hand making the Abhay Mudra of the colossal statue is webbed. It may be to demonstrate one of the 32 marks of a great being, or simply a technical device to keep the fingers together to avoid breaking. According to the Lakshana Sutta in the Digha Nikaya, the webbed fingers and toes are among the 32 marks peculiar to a great man. All the other signs, like feet with level tread, the soles with 1,000 spokes, projecting heels, long fingers and toes, legs like an antelope, etc., are not usually depicted in Gandharan art. Although apart from the rock-cut reliefs, which will be discussed later, no more large stone sculptures were made after the decline of the Kushan Empire in Gandhara and northwest India. However, the tradition of making standing Buddha images in bronze continued to exist. These images are datable to the 6th and the 7th centuries. The bronze statuette of the standing Buddha has a radiate halo and a mandorla behind him. Although the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in Gandharan art usually depicted with only a halo, the Buddha Shakyamuni on some rare series of coins minted in the name of Kanishka I, whom we date between 127 to 150, is depicted standing facing front, making a Abhay Mudra with the large right hand in front of a combined halo and mandorla. In this context, I wish to draw your attention to a pair of dice of King Kanishka I, which were used to strike coins depicting the Buddha. To my knowledge, the only coin die from Central Asia or from India known prior to this discovery is the one which we have already published of the Greco-Bactrian Demetrius I. The face of the die is engraved with a young, beardless Heracles standing frontally and crowning himself with his right hand. The left arm, over which hangs the lion's king, holds the club. The legend in Greek is engraved vertically on either side of the hero and reads as following: Basileus Demetrius. On the obverse die, which has not yet been found, should correspond to the silver tetradrachms of Demetrius I, who is wearing an elephant scalp, giving him the appearance of an Indian conqueror. The dice of Kanishka were found accidentally, which is very important, in a stupa deposit at Sajikideri, about 6 kilometers from Peshawar. According to the information I could gather, they were in a relic casket. The first images I received were of the unclean dice. A month later, the photographs of the clean dice were sent to me. The closest coin to the obverse die is a coin published by Katsumi Tanabe of the Hirayama collection. The King Kanishka stands clad in a heavy coat and long boots, with flames emanating from one of his shoulders, holding a scepter in his left hand and making an oblation over an altar with the right hand. Legend in Bactrian reads, Shanavo Shavo Kanishko Kushalo. The engraving is almost the same on the coin, but the dice are not identical. The important element of the die is the positive image of the letter N, which has become a negative N on the coin after the strike. The reverse die depicts the Buddha standing, facing, making Abhe Mudra with his large right hand, while the left holds the hem of the Samgati worn over the Paridana. The combined halo and mandorella appear behind the Buddha. Legend in Bactrian reads, Buddha. Once again, the closest coin to the reverse die is the coin published by Katsumi Tanabe of the Hirayama collection. I would like to present an unpublished coin of Kanishka I, with the exceptional figuration of the Buddha on the reverse, which I could examine this time. It was found at a site close to Ring Road of Peshawar. When it was found, the coin in question was transformed into a pendant. The center part of the Buddha image can be seen through the opening in the mount. I also obtained the photographs of the coin after the pendant structure was removed. We have already published a medallion in the exhibition catalogue of Dulandri Saloxis with the gold coin of Kanishka set in the center. The pendant is composed of 8 petals, each adorned with a garnet bezel in the form of Picus religiosa leaf. Compared to all the coins of Kanishka depicting the Buddha, the one recently found in Peshawar is masterfully executed. The treatment of the facial features is closer to the earlier stone sculptures of the Buddha attested in Gandhara. Like the beautiful sculpture in the Japanese collection, where the palm of the Buddha's right hand in Abhe Mudra is marked with a chakra symbol, the palm of the Buddha in our coin has the same characteristic. Although I do not wish to discuss further today, I firmly believe that the first anthropomorphic, in other words, human figure, Buddha with a human figure, of the Gautama Buddha were made in Gandhara, but not in Mathura. In Gandhara art, the iconography of the Bodhisattva Maitreya is recognizable thanks to his attribute par excellence, the flask, Kundika, which is translated by of my colleagues as the Kamandalu, but it's not a Kamandalu, it is a Kundika, because it is clear from the sacred text that in his last birth, he will be a Brahmin. In the Visuddhamagga, The Path of Purification, written by Buddhaghosa in the 5th century CE, it is said, I quote, "In the future, the Blessed One Maitreya will arise. His father will be a Brahmin, Subrahma. His mother will be a Brahmin, Brahmavati." Both in Theravada and Mahayana context, Bodhisattva Maitreya is the one who is striving for full enlightenment after Gautama Buddha. This is the reason why he is mentioned in early Buddhist texts as the Bodhisattva who will appear on earth in the future to achieve complete enlightenment and teach the pure Dharma. In the Lalita Vistara, when the Bodhisattva was to leave the Tusita to be born in the human realm, he reassures the gods saddened by his departure. I quote, "The Bodhisattva Maitreya will teach you Dhamma." He then placed, he here means the future Buddha Gautama, placed the diadem from his own head upon the head of the Bodhisattva Maitreya and said, "Noble being, after me, you will become the perfect and complete enlightened Buddha." Quotation ends. In the Pali tradition as well, the role of the Bodhisattva Mettaya, in Sanskrit Maitreya, is very well attested. For example, in Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta, the lion's roar of the turning of the wheel, in the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha says, I quote, "And in that time of the people with an 80,000 year span, there will arise in the world a blessed Lord, an Arahat, fully enlightened Buddha named Mettaya, endowed with wisdom, and conduct a welfarer, knower of the worlds, incomparable trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened and blessed just as I am now." Quotation ends. The number of Bodhisattva Maitreya images found in Gandhara is far greater than those attested in Mathura and Amravati and Nagarjunakonda. In Gandhara Nat, the iconography of Maitreya is easily identifiable, not only thanks to the water flask held in his hand, but also by his hairstyle, consisting of the Brahminical knot, also known as bow knot or double-looped top knot. This hitherto unpublished sculpture, most likely from Saribalol, unambiguously depicts the ascetic nature of Maitreya in a meditative position, with the double-looped top knot and curls hanging down the sides and falling over the shoulders. The representation on the base of the sculpture is also that of a Maitreya holding the water flask to compensate for its absence on the main sculpture. The treatment of his hair in curls falling down the sides of his face reminds us of the sculpture of the same Bodhisattva attested by Saribalol and Tartibai excavations. The transition from Gautama Buddha to the Bodhisattva Maitreya, narrated in both Sanskrit and Pali text, is attested in many Gandharan sculptures. This fragment relief, belonging to the upper part of a false niche, is a good example to show this changeover. While the Bodhisattva Siddhartha is engaged in a philosophical conversation with an ascetic on our right, Maitreya on our left is depicted residing in the Tushita heaven, surrounded by Indra and Brahma and 6 more gods. In the same context is the beautiful Gandharan sculpture depicting Gautama Buddha seated cross-legged with his hands in the Dhyana Mudra that is now in the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. On the pedestal, between the 2 extensions composed of the footprint of a lion, surrounded by a noble couple and 2 Buddhist monks all in Anjali Mudra, Gautama Buddha is depicted seated in the Dhyana Mudra next to the Bodhisattva Maitreya. He holds a water flask in the left hand and makes the Abhay Mudra with the right hand. He wears an Uttariya draped around his left arm, leaving his right shoulder and most of his chest bare. Likewise, the base of a statue from Chotorak in Afghanistan, put in a chronological order, Bodhisattva Siddhartha, dressed in priestly garments, followed by Buddha Siddhartha Gautama, and finally the Bodhisattva Maitreya. The succession of the Bodhisattva Maitreya after the Buddha Shakyamuni is well symbolized here. The plant of the false gable panel depicting the Bodhisattva Siddhartha and then the teaching Buddha and 7 Buddhas with Maitreya is another good example to show that there is no confusion in the minds of Gandharan artists about the transition of the Buddhahood from Gautama to Maitreya. The Bodhisattva Maitreya stands frontally, holding the ritual water flask, unfortunately partly broken, indicating he will be the next Buddha in the line, like the ones of the past depicted before him. Now, who are these Buddhas? John Marshall and Alfred Fouché correctly assumed that the last 7 Manusha Buddhas or Buddhas of the past were depicted on some reliefs carved on the lintels of the Great Sanchi Stupa. However, their precise identification remains problematic because they are depicted with anachronic symbols like stupas and trees. It is interesting to recall that during the recent excavations at Kanaganahari Stupa in Karnataka in South India, 6 sculptures in the round of the Buddha of the past and 2 of Gautama Buddhas were found. Each of them is identified thanks to an inscription engraved between the seat, figure, and the pedestal. You can see the 3rd statue were highlighted in yellow color. Now they are Vipassing with the legend Bhagava Buddho Vipassi and Sikhin Bhagava Sambuddho Singhi likewise. So we have Kapusanda and Konagama and Kashyapa. Among the Bodhisattvas, Maitreya is given a prominent place and he is named Aita or Ajita, the future Buddha. Ajita is another name for Maitreya, which occurs in Pali in the Anagatavamsa, as argued by Oscar von Hindenburg. So the legend reads, Siddha Bhagava Bosatto Aito Anagato Buddho. Success, the Lord Bodhisattva Aita, Ajita, the future Buddha. Now we come to the question of Avalokiteshvara. While the identification of the Bodhisattva Maitreya in the context of Gandharan art raises no problem, the dating and identification of the first images of Avalokiteshvara have been the subject of much debate. Contrary to the opinion of some modern scholars who claim that there is no epigraphic or textual evidence for the existence of a cult of Amitabha or Avalokiteshvara during the Kushana period, the discovery of the Gandhari manuscripts dated to the 1st century CE in a form similar to the Sanskrit version of the Ashtashastrika Prajnaparamita, the main text of the Mahayana, reveals that Avalokiteshvara was known in Gandhara. The first mention of Avalokiteshvara occurs in the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, the Lotus of the Good Law or the True Doctrine Sutra, dated to the first 2 centuries before and after the Common Era. He becomes popular because of his healing powers and above all, his reputation as the protector of land and maritime traders mentioned in Saddharma Pundarika. The development of trade routes crossing Gandhara valleys made this fertile land a meeting point of different cultures. The reputation of Avalokiteshvara as a savior of traders gained much popularity in Indian art, especially in Buddhist cave sculptures as well as in 5th century paintings of Western Deccan in Maharashtra, India. A group of sculptures, especially in the Buddhist caves of Kaneri, Ajanta, Ellora, and Aurangabad, depict the Ashtama Abhaya Avalokiteshvara, story in which the Bodhisattva comes to rescue human beings from the 8 great perils. The most evocative sculpture of the so-called litany of Avalokiteshvara, or Ashtamahabhaya, is the one carved on the left-hand side of the sanctum of the cave number 7 at Aurangabad. On this panel, Avalokiteshvara, with a lotus in the left hand and his right hand making the Abhaya Mudra, is shown protecting his devotees from the following dangers. So reading clockwise from the top right hand corner, enraged animals, you see a lion attacking a merchant, poisonous reptiles, you will see a cobra there, wild beast, that means a wild elephant, evil spirits and demons, shipwreck, captivity and slavery, sword of the enemy, and finally from devouring fire. This popularity led to the depiction of the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara, Ekadashamukha Avalokiteshvara, first attested in Kaneri, cave number 41, dated to the 6th century. Compared to these iconographies, which were diffused to Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, China, and Japan, early Gandharan sculptures were relatively simple. The confused ways of depicting this Bodhisattva, who embodied the compassion of all the Buddhas, is due to the transitional period before the codification of the iconography prevailing in Gandhara for 2-3 centuries, namely from the 2nd to 4th centuries of the Common Era. Sculptures depicting the triadic composition of the Buddha flanked by 2 bodhisattvas is a popular composition in Gandhara. One of the flanking images is Maitreya, and the other is Avalokiteshvara, whose iconography goes through a number of stages to become identifiable as Padmapani Avalokiteshvara. Some reliefs depicting the triad, Buddha with Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara, from the excavations at Saribalor and Takhtibai, have been misunderstood by some art historians. In the catalogue of the Peshawar Museum by Ihsan Ali and Mohammad Naeem Qazi, these reliefs are referred to as the miracle of Sravasti. The Buddha seated on a lotus throne, performing Dhammachakra Mudra, or preaching Mudra, is the first relief we have chosen from Saribalor. To the left of the Buddha stands a Bodhisattva Maitreya, recognizable by the water pot in his left hand and the loop in his hair, which reveal his Brahmin origins. To the right of the Buddha, or to our left, must be Avalokiteshvara, although his attribute is broken. The second relief, also found in Saribalor, misunderstood by our colleague, with a similar iconography, allows us to identify the Bodhisattva standing to the right of the Buddha. He is shown holding a garland of flowers, which is considered an attribute of Avalokiteshvara. In later codified iconography, he holds a lotus flower. In both sculptures, both bodhisattvas are depicted associated with 2 Hindu gods, Brahma to our left, holding the water pot, and Indra to our right, holding the thunderbolt or the Vajra. A skillful balance is achieved by depicting Avalokiteshvara together with Brahma and Maitreya together with Indra. The relief showing alternating Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, now in Taxila Museum, first published by Akira Miyagi, followed by represents from left to right Maitreya as Bodhisattva, then also as future Buddha. The next two are Siddhartha as Bodhisattva and Buddha Shakyamuni. The final pair depicts the Avalokiteshvara in princely robe, holding a wreath, flanked by a Buddha, who will be the future Avalokiteshvara Buddha. The wreath is considered as an alternative to the lotus flower, the characteristic attribute of Avalokiteshvara in Indian and Chinese Buddhist art. If this hypothesis is correct, we have here the depictions of Bodhisattva and Bodhisattvas and Buddhas from the past, present, and future. Another unpublished sculpture that I am showing you for the first time of Gautama Buddha, seated in Dhanya Mudra or in meditation, as the main iconography depicts on the base, the Buddha performing Dhammachakra Mudra, flanked on either side by Maitreya holding the water flask and Avalokiteshvara holding the symbolic lotus flower. The iconography of this unpublished sculpture is an important landmark in the evolution of the attributes held by Avalokiteshvara from the garland to the lotus flower. The seated figures of Bodhisattva holding lotus or bouquet of lotus are depicted in various poses. Sometimes he is seated in the ordinary cross-legged pose. He is also shown with the legs crossed at the ankle, hanging off the stool which is he is seated, or with one foot hanging off the stool and posed on the footrest, with the other resting on the cushion or posed against or close to the opposite leg. In a well-codified context, the Bodhisattva image, whose turban crest bears a small image of a seated meditating Amitabha Buddha, is considered as Avalokiteshvara. It is well known that Avalokiteshvara, destined to attain Buddhahood, was commonly regarded as the emanation and thus the spiritual son of Amitabha Buddha. The identification and the dating of the standing statue of Bodhisattva from Saribalor, Mount COD, now in the Peshawar Museum, holding a bouquet of flowers and characterized by a headdress with a small preaching Buddha, has caused much ink to flow. Fouché and Malman dated the statue not earlier than the 7th century on the grounds that the small Buddha in the headdress should be in the meditating attitude. Malman, refusing to consider the small preaching Buddha as Amitabha, goes as far as to identify him as Panchika and the object held in the hand as a purse or a bourse, one of the attributes of this deity, the Panchika. Harold Ingold, on stylistic grounds, identifies the sculpture as a depiction of Avalokiteshvara. The sculpture of Padmapani Avalokiteshvara that we have published in the exhibition catalogue, Dulanjusa Luxus, the Bodhisattva holds a similar lotus bouquet, and for this reason, considering the Bodhisattva from Saribalor as Padmapani Avalokiteshvara poses no problem for us. The sculpture of Bodhisattva in a pensive attitude, holding a lotus in the left hand, answers the objections raised by Fouché and Malman, because the small seated Buddha carved in the Jatamakuta is in a meditation pose, not in preaching attitude, so he has to be Amitabha, the spiritual father of Avalokiteshvara. It is now clear that the Bodhisattva depicted here is none other than Avalokiteshvara himself, because of the small Amitabha carved in the crest of the Jatamakuta. Furthermore, he is also Padmapani, one who holds the lotus flower, because the lotus flower he holds is the main attribute of Padmapani, one of the most common epithets of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of infinite compassion. It is also important to discuss another objection one may make against this hypothesis on the basis of the Buddha triad from former Lord Dumatto collection, currently on loan to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The Buddha in the middle, seated on a lotus, making the Dhammachakra Mudra, is flanked by two bodhisattvas. The bodhisattva standing to the right of the Blessed One is identifiable as Maitreya, thanks to the tied hair, even though his principal attribute, the water flask, is broken away, but still you can see a trace. The god with the same type of his hairstyle, standing behind the Buddha and Maitreya, is without doubt Brahma, reminding us of the both are Brahmins. As discussed earlier, it is taken for granted the Bodhisattva wearing the Jatamakutta with a small Buddha in Dhyani Mudra or meditation post, carved in his crest is Avalokiteshvara. The god emerging from our right behind the Buddha is certainly Indra, as attested by the Vajra or the thunderbolt held in his left hand. However, going against this identification, the standing Bodhisattva on the left side of the Buddha Shakyamuni was interpreted as Siddhartha himself by J. Rhee because his left hand is posed on the west. It is normally taken for granted that this gesture of left hand posed on the west is of Siddhartha. It is true, for example, that the flask gable panel we have examined earlier, depicting three themes in three successive registers. The Bodhisattva Siddhartha stands frontally, making Abhay Mudra with his right hand, and the left kept akimbo on the west. In the middle register, the Buddha seated in Padmasana or lotus position on a pistil of a fully blown lotus displays Dhammachakra Mudra, the preaching gesture. The row of figures in the lower register, as we have seen, 7 Buddhas plus last in line, the Bodhisattva Maitreya are depicted, thus visualizing the evolution from Bodhisattvahood to Buddhahood of Siddhartha and transition from Buddha Gautama to Bodhisattva Maitreya. The figure on the upper register is no doubt the Bodhisattva Siddhartha standing with his left hand kept against his left hip. First of all, one has to keep in mind that in Indian iconography, general assumptions are not to be considered as absolute truth. However, Francine Tissot claims that the left arm of the Bodhisattva in question was carved out, especially in recent years, and was fixed to its original location, indicated by the yellow color arrow. This means that at the origin, Bodhisattva was holding a wreath or a lotus in his left hand. If this observation is correct, the objection raised by Rhee has no validity. The codified iconography traveled to China and to Maharashtra and beyond. The unfinished sculpture from cave number 24 of the Nasik, or the Pandavilan complex, depicts the seated Buddha performing Dhammachakra Mudra, flanked by Maitreya on our left, marked by a stupa in the Jatamakutta. Avalokiteshvara to our right, easily identifiable by the lotus flower he holds, and the Tathagata Amitabha in his headdress. A relief from Baoqingxi Temple in Xi'an, Shanxi province in China, dating from the 703 of the Tang Dynasty, shows a similar triadic composition, probably derived from Gandhara. In this case, the Buddha in the middle can be Amitabha. An unpublished bronze sculpture depicting Avalokiteshvara seated on a lotus wearing a three-leaf diadem with the foliage motif tied with ribbons on the sides, the central leaf with seated Tathagata Amitabha in Dhyani Mudra, and two images of deified females, most probably White Tara and Green Tara on either side, is so far unique in the Gandharan region. This bronze sculpture is a part of a series of different iconographies that can be dated to the 6th and the 7th centuries. I would like to draw your attention to another unpublished bronze sculpture that was recently unearthed in northern Pakistan, which I could examine. The Buddha is seated on a Simhasana, performing the Dharmachakra Mudra. The back plate attached to the pedestal of the main sculpture by a tenon and the back by a pin is shaped like a halo. The halo is decorated with twisted flames. To the weaver's right, Indra is standing, holding a thunderbolt in his left hand. To our left, Brahma is standing, holding a flask, Kundika, in his raised left hand. This sculpture and the one with the Taras are stylistically and technically identical and cannot be dated before the 6th century. Although bronze sculptures are rare, there seems to have been a resurgence of Buddhism marked by Mahayana tendencies revealed by rock-cut images of Avalokiteshvara and other Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Our Italian colleagues from the time of Kusi Pittucci and our Pakistani colleagues have done a great deal of work on tracing these reliefs, some of which are difficult to access. The map reproduced by our good friend Anna Filigensi show that they are widespread in Swat Valley. Before examining their iconography, allow me to show a few thought-provoking examples of these sculptures. Does the presence of so many Buddhist images carved into the rock contradict the decline of the Buddhism in Gandhara conveyed by Chinese Buddhist monk Huinzong, who visited India in the 7th century? According to him, Buddhism was in decline in Gandhara and Hinduism was on the rise. Taxila, once the cradle of Buddhist civilization, was in ruin and Buddhist monasteries were deserted. In contrast, Hindu temples were numerous and Hinduism popular. What are the reasons for this revival of the Mahayana iconographies in the Swat Valley then? First of all, contrary to what John Marshall led us to believe for several decades, assuming that the Hephthalites swept over the Gandhara and Punjab, quote, carrying ruin and desolation wherever they went, quotation ends. Koyama has argued that, quote, the Hephthalites' destruction of Buddhism and Buddhist temples was a sheer conjecture, quotation ends. Furthermore, based on copper scroll inscription from the time of the Alkan Hans, Gudrun Melzer argued, quote, although the long-held opinion of the Huns, cruelty and destruction of Buddhist monasteries lasts till today, our copper scroll that he published documenting the building of a stupa together with the Pura inscription, documenting the erection of a monastery, clearly show that under the rule of these Huns, Buddhist buildings were erected, quotation ends. Secondly, and principally, despite absence of the traces of Buddhist monasteries still in activity around the 7th century, traders of Buddhist confession seem to have been taking the land trade routes passing through Gandhara. Among these trade routes, the one passing through Chitral, Swat, Gilgit, Punjab, using the passes of Karakoram, Hanging Pass, all the valleys of the distributaries of the Indus to reach Chinese Kashgar. Although scholars are not unanimous on the identification of Udyana with present-day Swat, Gusipatucci in 58 and 77 has argued that 8th century Tibetan and Chinese sources attest to the strategic importance of Udyana for the control of routes linking Central Asia and Northern India. It is in this context we can understand the importance of the unpublished bronze sculpture depicting Avalokiteshvara with the white and green taras on either side. I am very grateful to my good friend Yeshi Kempo for proposing this identification. It is an important addition to the rare presence of female deities in a region where sculptures are dominated by a male pantheon. As Anna Filigensi predicted in 2015, distinct iconographic types of Buddhist goddesses certainly existed in Swat at this time. Here is a proof. Moreover, Nimal C. Singha argues that Swat, Udyana, is considered one of the possible homelands of Tara. The composition of Avalokiteshvara with the white and green taras was very popular in Maharashtra cave temples, where Avalokiteshvara's reputation as the savior of traders enjoyed great popularity. The Buddhist caves at Ellora, generally dated to either 630 to 700 or 600 to 730 CE, feature several depictions of Avalokiteshvara accompanied by green and white taras on either side. The sculptures in cave number 11 and cave number 12 are exceptionally striking. To justify the popularity of Avalokiteshvara Padmapani in the Swat region, Giuseppe Tucci argued it could be due to the Bodhisattva's role as patron saint of the region, which would have earned him the special veneration of the local population. Avalokiteshvara Padmapani is usually depicted seated in a pensive pose, a posture in which the figure is shown half-seated with one bent leg while the other hangs in an angle. One cannot deny the fact that the majority of the rock-cut images of Avalokiteshvara Padmapani Swat Valley closely resemble the known bronze images of the same Bodhisattva. One of the closest examples is also found in northern Pakistan, now in a private collection of private collection. Padmapani Avalokiteshvara is seated frontally with the bare left foot resting on the pistil of a lotus with downward turned petals. The right leg is drawn up and the foot is posed on the seat. Bodhisattva is seated on the stool with the lattice work. He is seated on two cushions posed on the dais. The Bodhisattva holds from his left hand a stem of a lotus blossoming a little above the shoulder. The other hand is broken, but it may have been held close to the head in a pensive attitude. Likewise, his head inclines slightly towards the missing hand to his right. He wears a collar necklace made up of loop-in-loop chain adorned by a pendant composed of 5 petals fixed to the chain by a clasp. The grooved earlobes carry long earrings. Long braided locks of his hair fall over the shoulders. He wears a 3-leaf diadem with a foliate design, tied with ribbons at the sides, the central leaf with the seated Tathagata Amitabha in Dhani Mudra. The halo and mandorla are decorated with twisted flames. The bronze sculpture carries an inscription which runs around the upper part of the pedestal, and it was read by and translated and read by Oscar von Hünumann. So Devadharmo Yam, Sakya Bhikshu, Vimala Bhanusha. So this is the pious gift of the Sakya Bhikshu, Vimala Bhanu. In a personal note, Oscar von Neuberg informed us that the shape of the letters points to a date around perhaps 500 to 600 CE. Perhaps the best known example was the one which was exhibited in the Berkeley Art Museum in 2021. Avalokiteshvara Padmapani is seated frontally with the bare left foot resting on the footrest, extending from the lower edge of the seat. The right leg is drawn up with the foot on the seat. The Bodhisattva is seated on a cushioned dais decorated with lattice work composed of flowers, leaves, and roundels. The Bodhisattva holds in his left hand the stem of a lotus blossoming a little above the shoulder. The other hand is held close to the shoulder in a pensive attitude. Likewise, his head inclines slightly towards his right. His chest is bare. The undergarment is worn with a cord around the waist. He wears a short necklace made of beads arranged in decreasing sizes. He also wears bracelets and armlets. Amitabha Buddha, seated in the meditation, is visible on the sumptuous headgear worn by Avalokiteshvara. It is no exaggeration to say that, with a few exceptions, most of the images of Avalokiteshvara of this period, whether in bronze or carved in the rock, are characterized by the same iconography. However, the bronze sculpture preserved in a private collection that we exhibited, that we have just discussed, or discussed, originally had a black backplate attached to the pedestal of the main sculpture, probably by a tenant. This appears to have been lost. What is interesting here is that Avalokiteshvara is accompanied by two other bodhisattvas, giving a triad composition. To conclude my talk today, I would like to draw your attention to a group of Mahayana images, also from the Swat Valley, that are worth considering in this context. Like the previous sculptures of Padmapani Avalokiteshvara, this group is also found in the rock of the Kanchina near the town of Swat. These sculptures were found buried underground and has suffered from erosion. There are three groups in all. The one on our far right, depicted standing facing up, holding a flask, could represent Bodhisattva Maitreya, or more likely, God Brahma. The second group in the center consists of the seated Buddha in meditation and two Bodhisattvas on either side. The one on our right, standing and holding a lotus, is probably Avalokiteshvara. The one on our left, holding what looks like a flask, is Maitreya. The third group on our left is probably Avalokiteshvara, with two Taras, each on his side. Avalokiteshvara Padmapani is shown seated in pensive mood, holding the stem of a symbolic lotus flower on his left shoulder. Each Tara holds a lotus flower. It is clear that Avalokiteshvara's reputation as savior of traders enjoyed great popularity in Gandhara. The spread of the cult of Avalokiteshvara is therefore closely linked to the prosperity of, to the popularity of Mahayana cults in Gandhara, and also to flourishing overland trade. Once Hinduism, due to royal patronage, took over from Buddhism, and the very nature of the trade routes changed as navigators found ways to trade directly with Far Eastern producers, cutting out the middlemen merchants who had crossed the various parts of Central Asia. The popularity of Mahayana cults declined in Gandhara, but remained widespread in South and Southeast Asia and beyond for many centuries to come. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Osman, for a wonderful talk once again. And again, your gift to embark on this very close reading of the iconography. I forgot to mention in my introductory remarks, if you have questions for Osmond, please type them into the Q&A box, and I'll try to um, pay attention to as many as time allows. It's getting very late in Paris, I know, but I think Osmond has always more energy than any of us combined. So I think we can accommodate perhaps quite a few. Maybe I can get us started. And I want to go back to something that you said in the beginning in terms of the new discoveries, focusing on the Kushan dye, because you talked only very briefly,
Yes.
but it was quite striking. And I just wanted to sort of, perhaps you could clarify. There are two dye that were the provenance of which is not completely clear, but there is a suggestion that they were found in a stupa deposit in a relic casket. If that is the case, and we could argue that, then my question is, does that then lead perhaps credence to the idea that the Buddha issues of the Kushans were not necessarily meant for wide circulation, but perhaps were special issues catering towards the Buddhist community, and therefore those dye particularly would have been considered auspicious
Yes.
enough to be included, right, in a
Yes.
stupa. And following from that, perhaps if we look at it from more a prosaic perspective, does that also once again tie perhaps the minting of coins to the monastic settlements as well? So they're actually two questions that are somewhat
Yeah.
interrelated but are quite different. So
Yeah.
maybe you have an answer
Absolutely,
to that.
absolutely right. Right, Sanjot, and it's a very intelligent question, and both questions are very intelligent. I verified the provenance, and they were found in a reliquary in a stupa. Unfortunately, not legal context. As you correctly said, the coins with the Buddha image are very rare. What the die shows us is there is an almost identical coin issued by the same die, at least the reverse die. I mean, both dies. The coin which is in the Iriyama collection, published by Tanabe. And other interesting things, now I'm doing a big die study on all the Kushan coins, taking this die into consideration. The obverse die was used to strike other types. What I mean is Zoroastrian gods, Greek gods like Heracles and others. So they used the obverse die, which was already made, and accidentally they made a reverse die for an occasion. It would have been a
Yeah.
special occasion. It's a gathering. It's a
Mhm.
synod of the. I mean, we know about the gathering during the time of Kanishka. So this is again. That's why I like your question. It goes beyond the circulation of the concept that we have coins. Coins are also tokens sometimes. They are
Right.
made of good gold, but they are as a token given to the monks who participated. Like we get medals when you go to a conference. If you're invited to Vatican, we might get one like that. And so it's it's exactly the same nature. Same nature. So this is a very important discovery because the obverse die is very important. Reverse die is temporary. And they must have, I mean, struck about, I don't know, about 10, 20 or maximum 400 coins and gave to the monks, and that's it. And they were not in circulation. These coins were not found in circulation. I mean, the coins that we have published so far, they came from, again, the stupa deposits, not the other coins. Other coins were in archaeological context. So which means, which I didn't talk much because it was not the main purpose, and there were many other things I wanted to talk also. There was another reliquary with the inscription saying that It is the relics of the Buddha, which I didn't talk, which is not relevant either. So many new things were found in Pakistan. I mean, these are going to change our whole conception about Gandhara. Thank you so much, Sanjay,
Yes.
in that question.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of segued from the main topic
Yeah.
of the talk, but it was interesting for anybody who's studying the Kushan period, that relationship between Buddhism and sort of royal power is somewhat of a mysterious one. So it's nice to actually find some concrete evidence, even if it's not provenanced well, to give credence to some of the thoughts and ideas regarding that relationship. There are quite a few questions, so I'll start. So the first question is there any bodhisattva besides Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara in Gandhara?
Very interesting question again. There aren't. Not during the Kushan period, but after. There are, I mean, especially the rock cut images that I showed you, definitely there is Manjusri. And also Vajrapani. And these are all late, that means 7th, 8th centuries. But I haven't come across any other, bodhisattva other than Maitreya and Avalokiteshvara during the Kushan period. So what I call the classical Gandharan period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there was any influence of Greek art at any point? I don't know whether that relates to the Avalokiteshvara images.
Yeah. Yes. There is a Greek influence on Gandharan art. I mean, what I call inspiration. So they can take Greek motifs and make it Gandharan style. It doesn't mean it's Greek inspired or Greek influenced, because the story is Indian. But the appearance of, if the question is related to the Bodhisattva, no. I mean, there is no Greek inspiration on Bodhisattva. The way they dressed, where they are, jewelry and other things, yes. The concept of, Maitreya would be related purely Buddhist. But if you look at this was a recent talk I gave in Ghent, Belgium, about the Greek inspiration. One has to be very careful with what Fouché said and many others. It's not Greco-Buddhist art. They used, because of the presence of the Greeks in the region, some Greek motifs to narrate an Indian story. When you go to Mathura, it's different. When you go to Amaravati, it's a different story. I think I answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pranams, thank you so much. Fascinating and thorough, deeply satisfying explanation. So glad to know that new finds are being discovered even this late in history. A comment, not a question. Next question, is there anything to say in general about the size and density of the population over the periods when these figures were flourishing? Were people spreading westward more than previously? I guess, are there patterns? Societal patterns that suggest that our transformations are occurring.
Yeah, there are two periods. As everybody has seen, during the Gandharan period, during the Kushan period, it was really, they have hundreds and hundreds of sites, and I was very much amazed when I saw the excavations at Barikot by Italian excavators. So there is a huge extension of Buddhist monasteries. After the decline, right, as Kyunson says, but as Tucci says, and there was a popularity of these Bodhisattva. This mainly Avalokiteshvara, although as I said, there's one of Manjusri certainly, and also Vajrapani, and also Tara. These are all related to trade. So the trade route, I don't know, I was clear enough, starting from Afghanistan, going to Chitral to Swat, Swat to to Hunza to Gilgit, and Gilgit to Kashgar. This is a road where, now, Jetmar has worked, now Jason Neelis is working on that, where you get all the Buddhist and other iconographies along the road. So it's a manifestation of the traders, or maybe people who were settled in the sites for Avalokiteshvara and other Bodhisattva. It's mainly associated with Avalokiteshvara and asking for some sort of a protection. So I won't call it a decline. it completely disappeared by the 10th century when it was mainly because of the fluctuation of the trade. So the trade was more, people were more interested, especially the Sasanians, in the maritime Silk Roads that we have been working on. So that's the reason. So it's very difficult to get an idea of the population. This is everything that we said, even Sanjot, if you can remember during the Gandharan conference we had, is most of the people, they are not interested in settlements and archaeology. They are not interested in how people lived. So it's more, I mean, rewarding when you excavate a monastery, because you find a lot of things. But if you do I mean, as you do, as we have done, you get very little evidence, because ordinary people didn't live like monks or kings. So you get less information. So unless we worked on the settlements, we will not get the settlements of ordinary people who nourish the monks, who nourish the population. I mean, the royalties and others. We will not get a quite clear idea about the population. But looking at the inscriptions that are now coming into recent years, that were, deciphered by our colleagues Richard Solomon and Harry Falk and many others, Mark Callan, Ingo Strau, and then Stefan Baus and others. So it gives an idea there was a big population giving donation. They should be rich to give donation to the Buddhist monasteries. I think you can add something, Sanjay. You are working on this.
Oh, well, no, I was thinking about something else as you were speaking. So I was thinking about the project we did, and I had the great pleasure of being invited on it by you, tracing the spread of Avalokiteshvara images in Sri Lanka or across the island, but also in the context of maritime trade. And I was just wondering whether or not, in terms of spatiality or sort of spatial configurations, when you compare that work or what we trace there with what is going on in Gandhara and through the Swat Valley, the Karakoram Highway into sort of the areas that are now part of China, is it the same? I mean, it's basically, the way that they are diffused, or the way where they pop up, in what locations they pop up, minding, of course, the different geographies, water geography versus that of the mountains. Is this the similar pattern that you see?
It is. I mean, again, it is. I mean, along the rivers, you have the Swat River, and going to the Indus, and the tributaries of Indus, and then going through the hanging pass to Kashgar. Because the rivers, both of us have worked, and thanks to also Lou Lancaster, the river patterns are very, very important to understand the trade. Yeah. If you don't take into consideration the river patterns, we will not understand anything about the trade in ancient time.
Right. Good. Okay. Would it be possible to shed some light on the provenance of unpublished works? Are those in some private collections? How certain are we about the authenticity of those objects if provenance is uncertain?
Yeah, it's a very good question. This is what I have done in my whole life, going to Pakistan at least 30 times, good old days. I never publish something without looking for the provenance. I do my homework. I started doing this for the coin hoards. I even went to Afghanistan, dangerous places, to do firsthand. I mean, unfortunately, these things are coming from legal excavations. They also come from illegal excavations. There is no control over it. But things are found. I mean, all the Gandhari manuscripts were not found in legal excavation. So we need to take into consideration the thing that we have to do is to avoid any risk of publishing a fake. There are a lot of fakes in Gandhara. To go to the places and then ask the villagers and do the homework. And you don't have that risk with the coin notes, because most of the coin notes that I published, they were still in a pot. So we had to clean them, and then, I mean, this was done by the private collectors in Pakistan, into my work. So we know the provenance. For the two coin dies, I know the provenance. I have seen the casket, and also the other things. But there are other things that I haven't found anything, so I don't publish them. I don't talk about them. But at least we need to talk, because we can't just leave it. But a lot of good information will be gone otherwise. It's not easy to work in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. It's not like in Sri Lanka or India. Yes.
All right, next question. Thank you for such a wonderful session. It was very enriching. Regarding the metal image of Avalokiteshvara with two taras, the style seems similar to the Kurkihar,
Yeah.
Gaya, Sirpur, Eastern India bronzes. Could that
Yes.
image then have a separate provenance? Or perhaps the molds or styles were influences by these sites, suggesting the shifts in centers of art styles or schools and, of course, internal trade.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, when you trace again the trade routes, right, you see I mean, most of the things started in Gandhara and they go to Kashmir and Kashmir to the east coast of India. There are, I mean, I didn't talk about it, and most of these sculptures are now in the new museum in Patna called Bihar Museum. So I could see them. I mean, it's a huge work. Somebody should do, I mean, research and a thesis on it. I mean, I'm sure Monica Thanda will do that, something similar, because it's a very, very important subject to deal with. The transmission of knowledge, transmission of techniques and iconography. They are not copied and pasted, but there is evolution in it. So I believe the things, objects were I mean like the things that find in Sri Lanka, most of them came from originally from Andhra Pradesh and also from Bihar. So so you have the original ones, and there you have the how do you call it, the ones that were reinterpreted in a different context. So I totally agree with the person who asked that question. This is to be done.
Actually, this question from Pat Berger.
Okay.
Thank you for another enlightening lecture. The relief of the three Buddhas with bodhisattvas at their sides, where Avalokiteshvara is shown next to his Buddha form, along with Buddha, Siddhartha, and Maitreya Bodhisattva and Buddha, seems very unusual. Do you know of any other examples where Avalokiteshvara is matched with a past Buddha?
From Gandhara, this is the only one. I could examine it again because it was not found in a legal excavation. It was purchased in 1920s, if I'm not mistaken, at that time during the British period. Now it is exhibited in the Taxila Museum. I have no doubts about it. It is there, but the composition like that is not found, except for another one that which I have published elsewhere, where you get Avalokiteshvara very clearly. You get Maitreya, and then you get Avalokiteshvara. Maitreya with the water flask, and Maitreya with the garland or a lotus. So, I mean, to my knowledge, there are only 2 or maximum 3. They're quite rare. So we should be clear in their mind. Yeah.
Also, as a PhD scholar working on Tara in India and Southeast Asia, I was curious when you would place the earliest occurrence of Tara images in the Gandharan region.
The ones that I showed, they cannot be dated before the 6th century. I was because Tara doesn't appear with. I mean, for Avalokiteshvara, there is no doubt. The one that I published can be dated to the 2nd century, and also the one found in Saribalol excavations. And there are others. You know, it's not with the Amitabha on the headdress, but with the lotus flower. There are many, but no Tara images can be dated to that period. So it is almost 6th century. 6th, or I mean, can be 5th century. There was a new statue which was found of Tara in Gandhara, which I haven't seen yet. I got the photographs. I'm looking forward to seeing them, which can be earlier. Which can, when I say earlier, could be 4th century. That's the earliest I can go. I mean, according to knowledge, we have Maharashtra caves. They are all from the 5th century onwards, not before. I think the question is asked by Monica, and it has to be. I need to look at what had happened in Odisha and Bodh Gaya and other places, and especially in Bihar.
Next question. Are you fine with a few more
No,
questions?
I'm fine.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm Yi Song Hong. a doctoral student at Ghent University. My question is, the right hand is depicted in Abhaya Mudra, symbolizing reassurance and safety, while the left hand holds the robes of the Buddha. What is the deeper significance conveyed by this particular representation of the Buddha?
I mean, it's almost the same for all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, whether it's in Amaravati, or whether it's in Telangana, whether it is in Mathura. So when you make a gesture, you have to use the right hand. You never use the left hand unless the composition is, I mean, difficult. But it has to be the right hand always. That's the basic thing. Then the left hand, you hold the hem of the. It is also in Amaravati, Nagarjunakonda statues, which inspired most of the sculptures in Sri Lanka and then in Thailand and Burma. The Abhay Mudra, the palm facing, turns into this later in Sri Lankan because it was a misunderstanding. So it's always the right hand. So you have to do something with the left hand. So either you put the hand here, like in Amaravati, I don't know if you can see me, where you hold the chivara, the overrobe, or you hold it, the pleats of the overrobe from your left hand. That's something very conventional in all Indian art, whether it's Buddhist or Hindu or any other. I mean, no, I mean, not any other. I mean, Jain, those three religions.
Thank you for a wonderful talk. Can you comment on the fact that in Tibetan art, the 8 dangers or fears associated with images of Tara as a savioress from these dangerous fears are identical to the 8 dangers of the Astamahabhaya Avalokiteshvara?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is. I mean, I didn't talk about it because you don't find the Ashtabha Tara in Gandhara, but they are found in Odisha. I mean, especially, I mean, there is one in Ratnagiri Museum and one found in Ratnagiri, which is in the Patna Museum. And recently, I spoke about it in one of my talks on Tara, which was found. One was found absolutely beautiful. One was found in Bangladesh. It is published by an archaeologist who kindly sent me the photographs, and all the eight perils are recorded. So it is. I mean, I traveled also. I mean, Dungong Caves. The same. I mean, they are there. All the perils are. So it was a main thing because not only he protected mariners from the shipwrecks, but also he protected the traders from other dangers like snakes, lions, elephants, fire, and also demons in the forest. And so these Ashtamabhaya, especially in Dungong caves, not much in Kizil, Dungong caves and also Yulin caves and other places, Ashtamabhayas, I mean, not in the same disposition, the clockwise, but they are there in the paintings. I mean, these things, of course, I have mentioned in my talks.
Can you please compare the evolution of Avalokiteshvara images along the land route with that along the maritime route in greater detail? You mentioned the importance of river connections to the land route. I assume the same can be said about the maritime route. I wonder if rivers provided a site for the intersection between the two sets of routes. Can you comment on that? Thanks.
Yeah, this is what we are doing, Sanjay.
Yes.
So I mean, I mean, we have finished it now. It's almost finishing the whole book, which is about 400 pages now. We did a complete study of all the river patterns in Sri Lanka, and there are about 110 rivers fall into the sea. I mean, without counting the tributaries. The Avalokiteshvara images are erected either at the river mouths or along the rivers, and it's the same pattern which I saw when I was in Thailand, and it's the same thing with I don't know whether Professor Sharp is there, and this is what we find also along the Irrawaddy River and many other rivers, and also in Java, in many countries, and in India. I mean, especially the connection with Krishna River and Godavari and all the other rivers. They are all connected with the rivers. Go along the rivers, you will find Avalokiteshvara from the 5th century onwards.
I have I have done something similar in my thesis as well, tracing Tara from India and Southeast Asia, Tibet, and Sri Lanka. This is a comment more. Your works have been a huge help in that, and I appreciate your answer. There are 2 questions left. So, is that image of Tara in Gandhara? So I think,
Yeah,
some of the
yes.
Taras that you spoke about, just to locate them again.
Yeah. It's the same answer because I mean it's the same answer I gave. But by the 6th, 7th century, she's there. She's well there. And also the last one, although it is very much corroded, it was found very recently, the last one in my talk, where you have the combination of, I mean, Buddha with 2, I mean, Avalokiteshvara and Maitreya, and then Avalokiteshvara with green Tara and the white Tara, which is, well, I mean, Vatican, there are many others in the same level. So Tara becomes very popular. That's why the singer says that it was the land, Udyana was the land of Tara. So Tara comes little later, probably 5th century. I mean, if I'm really optimistic, it can be 4th, but not before. But there are reasons for that.
Oh, it's a follow-up to that question. Ray, my question, is the earliest image of Tara to be found in the 6th century only in Gandhara?
Yeah, yes, only the ones that I showed in Ellora, they cannot be dated before the 7th century. The caves are dated to 600 or 630. The ones in yeah, the Ellora are the best ones. You get in Nashik when I went with the, I mean, Berkeley students. So that it will be, there is no danger if you say from the 5th century onwards, Tara became popular. But in Gandharan context, I would say 5th, I would also say in India the same. But I may be wrong because, I mean, I'm just deducing from what we know. That's why we need more excavations and especially in the good archaeological context. But I won't be surprised if there are any before, and I won't be surprised either if there aren't. I'm very happy with the 5th century for obvious reasons. The focus of the trade changes from the 5th century onwards.
All right. I think we should come to the end now of a very wonderful afternoon, a very wonderful journey, and a wonderful talk. I hope, thank you to the audience too for your questions, and I hope those of you who are local might want to, or join us next week for the lecture on the Indian Ocean, which should also be very, very fascinating. And to all others, thanks for being here, and thank you for sticking it out with us. And to Osmond, once again, thank you for your willingness to share some of your lasted research. And I get the great pleasure to say to you, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. For the Berkeley crowd, they may have to wait a little bit later, but I'm sure that in the not too distant future, we'll have you visit us again, and that would be a wonderful thing for our community. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Frank, for managing the webinar, and we'll see everybody at a later date. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, bye.
Bye.